Hey, good Monday evening, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here with WCNC Live Weather Impact on this Monday evening. It has been a gray day, kind of muggy. If you spent any time outside today, while the clouds made it feel a little bit better than it actually was, it was pretty sticky by October standards. And yes, there has been rain in parts of the area. That's been a very elusive thing to get around here lately, and we haven't seen a whole lot of it. Let's start, though, with the view from our camera here in the Billy Graham studios. We're looking back towards uptown Charlotte, and you can see the skies are pretty gray. It looks like it should be raining in some spots, but it really isn't raining in many locations. It's just kind of a muggy, cloudy, dreary kind of looking day. Now, I will show you where there is rain, and boy, if you're in Chester County, southern York County, even Cleveland County, looks like some good rain moving in there now, and some darker shades of green. The area that's been most impacted has been Cherokee County and Union County, South Carolina, so around Gaffney down to Union. But yeah, over towards Boiling Springs, some rain falling. I even saw a drop of rain briefly on our camera, but that was about it, and certainly not enough to put any significant dent in the drought. And I will tell you this, oftentimes we'll get rain and people think, oh, the drought's over. The droughts don't form overnight. They don't go away overnight. You need normal rain, and then you need above normal rain to get out of a drought. So it's kind of like being malnourished, and just because you're eating right now doesn't mean all of a sudden you're not malnourished. You still need to sustain that for a while. Now, something else to note today, not that we'll see the sunset, 7:01 p.m. sunset tonight. That is the last 7 p.m. or later sunset until next April. For a lot of folks, I know that's depressing, but that's just a sign of the times. I mean, that April 8th, that's after the spring forward time change. And I'll show you the next 4 weeks, because you'll see tonight, 7:01, next week, 6:50, 6:41. So, Jeb, when I get out here, it's going to be dark when I leave here.
I feel like I say this every year, but I swear there was no 5:26 sunsets last year. Like, I know it sounds crazy. I know I'm wrong, but that's crazy to me.
That's super. And the reason that's such a big jump is that is after the fall back. So that it should be 6:26, but because of the time change, it jumps back. So that's where it really hits you. That weekend where you're like, I get an extra hour of sleep. And then on Monday, you're like, what? It's dark out. I'm going home in the dark. So, yeah. That's the depressing part for me, is like when you leave here and it's dark. And for some folks, you go to work and it's dark, and you come home and it's dark. So it's a tough time of year, but for folks that work like 9 to 5s, because sometimes that's the only daylight hours. But that's just, it happens every year. So that's just kind of what we are right now. And I didn't mean to start off the show with that depressing thing, but I'll start with some better news. And Tim and I are going to talk about this. Tonight is the full harvest moon, and I'm going to go on a whole rant about super moons, which are fake. No, they're not fake, but it's just a made up name. We'll talk about what that actually means. But what's really interesting to me, and this is a cool fact, so the harvest moon isn't always in October. Here's the cool thing about the harvest moon. The harvest moon is always declared the full moon closest to the autumnal equinox. So sometimes the full moon in late September is closer to that equinox on the 22nd than in October. So there's times where the harvest moon could actually be in late September. But it gets that name because it was kind of said that farmers would use the full moon light to finish up the fall harvest, which, if you think about it, typically is late September, early October, especially for northern climates, maybe not so much down this way. But what's interesting, if the harvest moon did happen in September, this moon would actually be called the full hunter's moon, because this is a time of year, if you're a hunter, we're getting geared up for hunting season. A lot of, not deer season's coming up here as the rut gets going. So a lot of folks are gearing up for that. Moonrise, 6:40 p.m., which is basically going to come up here any minute in the eastern sky. It sets in the morning at 6:39. So if you're up late tonight or early tomorrow and you get breaks in the clouds, you might see the moon trying to poke its bright light through the clouds. It's going to be warm tonight, low and mid 60s. So 20% chance of a sprinkle out there. Tomorrow, if we see full sun, I wouldn't be shocked to see mid 80s, but with a mix of sun and clouds, probably low 80s. I will tell you this, it's going to be pretty sticky tomorrow. I noticed this today. It's humid for October, 60s for dew points. There's a chance we could go in the 70s briefly. In fact, one area today, I'm going to show you real quickly, down towards Chester and Lancaster, I'm going to show you the current dew points. You can see Lancaster right now, 70, 68 in Sherrall. So we briefly got there today. So don't be surprised if you feel a little sticky tomorrow. But here's the good news. It is October, by the way, so we're going to get a cold front eventually. That cold front doesn't get here until Wednesday. And what's interesting is I'm optimistic we'll see rain. I just don't think it's going to be a bunch of rain because the rain looks pretty scattered, though. I think a last-minute surge of thunderstorms along the front could really help us out. And I'll show you the close-up view of this. So tomorrow, kind of like today, a mix of sun and clouds, maybe a sprinkle, 20% chance. Wednesday, some showers develop in the morning, but look what happens in the afternoon. The sun comes out, that front right there, maybe a cluster of thunderstorms. So on Wednesday, during our show here, we might be talking about some thunderstorms moving through. They're not going to be strong or severe, but it's always weird when you hear thunder in the fall, but we could see that coming up on Wednesday. Now, rainfall amounts, this is where it gets a little depressing because some folks get super lucky. There could be a few spots over an inch, but there's a lot of folks that could get nothing out of this. Remember, just an inch per week is what you need to maintain normal rainfall. We need above that because we've been so dry. Tim's talking about this right now. I'm going to talk about this with him a little bit. We could have a weekend nor'easter. And why is this important for all our viewers and listeners out on the coast? We have king tides this week, and we'll get into that. That has a lot to do with the full moon and what it's called perigee when it's closest to the earth. That actually happens on Wednesday. So this whole week, tides are running astronomically high. You throw a nor'easter in there with strong onshore flow, you're going to see some more houses, I think, come down in the Outer Banks and likely some beach erosion. And eventually that could bring us some clouds and showers. Fall color, boy, if you're in the mountains this weekend, I saw some great pictures from the Blue Ridge Parkway this weekend. We're now at peak color above 4,500 feet. Those spots over towards the graveyards, Mount Mitchell, Grandfather Mountain, Roan Mountain, those areas are starting to see really good color. So this week is likely going to be peak color. There's really no bad weekend to go to the mountains. Any weekend in the next 3 or 4 weekends, you're going to find good color. But if you want the peak color at the highest elevations, this might be the last week for that. But the Blue Ridge Parkway should be good the next couple of weekends. And just to give you an idea, kind of that 3,500 feet is a good spot to be this weekend and next weekend. But the tops of these mountains are likely going to start losing leaves in another week or so. Your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, I'm going to call it kind of warm and humid the next couple of days. Low 80s for your Tuesday, Wednesday. Yes, some thunderstorms, but look at Thursday, Friday. Pumpkin spice fans, those are going to be your days right there because we're upper 60s and you're 70 with sunshine. Morning lows could briefly get into the 40s. But here's the thing. I don't see any big blasts of cool air. Seen a lot of hubbub on social media, people trying to talk up cold blast and snow already. There's no signs of it, at least for us. If anything, it looks warmer than average in the long range. This is our 10-day forecast. You could see going into next week, another warm-up back into the low 80s. And just to reiterate that, I'll show you the whole country because you'll see this stuff on social media, be like, there's cold air coming. Not in the next 6 to 10 days. That's above normal temperatures for most of the eastern two-thirds of the country. And if we go even farther out in that 8 to 14-day range, no signs of it there either. So I'll talk a little bit about that with Tim. We're going to talk about the harvest super perigee moon. We'll get them all in there. And we had an EF5 tornado back in June that was just confirmed today. We'll talk about that coming up in a couple of minutes with Tim. Stick around.